Mamuina Kwaba at the bank activity for and Chebia and Sicily John Dramani Mahama, Ninia Ibrahim Mahama, or that engineers and planners anon Aquacoto the black voter mining company for $100 million. Some Ketua. Now, Bright Simmons of Money Ghana Limited, Ababontin, at the exposes Abetoja about the black voter mining company. Ibrahim Mahama Akoton or the next Abetoja about a transaction via a Session John Roman Mahama Nunia, even put a Dr. Kesu at Forson, then Sasha Sebi. No, she was in Elsica Tafri Pa Akoso. Some Ketua, and else we Pinaputi and Comobuana San Sama or the Tuja, Madame.
Why? And obviously, the infrastructure that you need in order to establish that you have a significant mine is why and planners itself, in its own statements, in its own submissions to the arbitration process in London, which I'll get to in a minute, in its own declamations in court in Ghana in relation to this issue, have made it very clear that this is a very politicized project. If you read the statement that they issued when I started commenting about this subject, they were very clear that it's the Minerals Commission itself that have given them a no objection letter to go ahead and take over the mine. Is the Minerals Commission a private organization? It's a state institution.
Correct.
On top of that, they've made it very clear that they will go ahead and acquire the mine, whether or not the shareholders agree. We will come to that in a minute. Now, if you live in a country where expropriation is not in our laws, we don't allow expropriation without compensation, except under very well-defined, on very well-defined grounds. For a private company to declare that because they have a no objection letter from the Minerals Commission, they will go ahead and do a transaction without the involvement of their shareholder, tells you that there's a political undertone. Because why would the government give me that no objection letter in the face of these disputes? All of that, therefore, means that it was very important that the fact that the Equas Bank had come in, the Equas Bank board chair is a Ghanaian. He has a history of working in the Ghanaian public sector. He used to be at ARB Apex quite a while ago. The current rotating chair of governors is our own finance minister, joined just a few months ago, took over just a few months ago. All the board members are his colleague politicians in the region. All the board of directors of the Equas Bank are civil servants under the control of politicians. Equas Bank does not have an independent governance body, an ombudsman like you see in other multilateral development banks that I can go and complain to if I have an issue. If I have an issue with the World Bank, there's the IEG group. We've been doing all manner of reviews about World Bank projects in Ghana, and I've written extensively, probably the person who has written the most about World Bank projects in a single country in the world. But we have information from every World Bank project because that's a requirement. Equas Bank doesn't have that. So there's a lot of transparency issues when it comes to Equas Bank and such a transaction. Therefore, we have an interest to make sure that underneath it, there aren't any political problems or political influence, etc. And that is why I got involved. So having explained in great detail why I got involved, we now get to some issues around the Equas Bank decision to enter. Equas Bank was entering, and I knew this for a fact, when it already had a history with the project. When in May 2024, it had given a term sheet. A term sheet is simply a high-level offer through EMP, which had then arrived at Azuma Resources, which owned the asset, offering to put money into the mine. And the shareholders of Azuma Resources had looked carefully at what had been offered and said it doesn't meet the terms of the agreement. So Equas Bank had then gone and refined it the next month and brought another offer back, and the company had said no. So there was a history between this bank and this project. That's very important to bear in mind. We also know that long after that, and just before these matters exploded in the public limelight, and when this company, the shareholders, got wind of what was happening, they had written to Equas Bank, telling Equas Bank that they are not involved in any transaction and the rest of it. Now, if you have such live disputes, you have a history with the project and understand, therefore, that there is concern about the shareholders. You've dealt with shareholders telling you no before. Then you go behind them, work with the one trying to acquire the mine, fly into Ghana, stage a champagne-fueled event, issue public statements of your support, and then declare that the board of directors has approved the loan. For the board of directors to approve the loan, a number of very critical issues then arise. First, under the rules of the Equas Bank, when you make an application for money, there are a lot of documents you need to submit. Those documents are to facilitate due diligence. Mining is a special category across the world in all banking jurisdictions, especially in the respect of multilateral development banks, such as Equas Bank. Why? Because often the environmental, social, and governance standards are very, very, very high. So you have to do a whole bunch of due diligence, etc. on it. Now, how do you do due diligence when the owner of the asset, who is the one who has all the information and the likes of it, is not participating? Who are you asking critical questions and the likes of it? Unless you are part of a scheme to rip off the mine from the owners, and therefore you don't think the owners are relevant. You only deal with the acquirer. It's a very strange due diligence approach. And because of that strange due diligence approach, we determined that this was a matter in respect of our ongoing mandate to investigate multilateral development banks, which we've been doing for a very long time in this country. So the Equas Bank angle, the event that was staged to allow Equas Bank to make this announcement in a live dispute was so critical to us from a point of view of, the politics of it, that we thought we had to intervene. As I've tried to explain, when IBED says that the board of directors of IBED has approved the deal, that can only be at the end of a very long trail of processes. Typically in a bank like that, you have management, staff, even sometimes even junior officers, then it gets to management. You have committees, risk committees. The management itself has risk committees, credit committees, investment committees. While those committees have done their work, etc., they present a memorandum that goes to the board of directors, which has another committee, the risk and credit committee in the case of Equas Bank. They do further evaluation, and then they go to the whole board, which then does an approval. So you are telling me that despite all the information that has now surfaced, all those procedures went through Equas Bank to the point where Equas Bank was then convinced that they had to issue this statement claiming the acquisition had happened. Well, we now know the acquisition has not happened because the shareholders have not sold. If this was not the kind of thing that a researcher who has an interest in multilateral development banks and has written extensively, my current visiting senior fellowship at ODI, that's been one of the first set of things that I've written about World Bank standards, IFC, etc., etc. You have a situation with mineral resources where CSOs are required to be at the table, and I have done extensive commentary on mining matters in this country, Ake, Tallow, Atlantic Lithium, etc. Given this set of circumstances, how possible could I have been quiet? It's not possible to be quiet. Everything about this deal touches on extreme public interest. So now we'll start to tackle the disinformation that has been allowed to cloud the key issues. The first myth is that the investors have been sitting on the assets since 1992, which was in the Engineers and Planners press release, if you read it. Is it true or not? So here is the history. The people that are currently in a tussle with EMP are not the people who discovered the resource. They are not the people who started the process. Long ago in early 90s, in 1992, BHP did some investigation, and somewhere in the Wa-Lora enclave, they discovered a deposit called Kunche. So very, very long time ago. And then they didn't go ahead with it. It wasn't commercially viable enough. About 6 years thereabout, a company called Ashanti IM Gold then rediscovered it